privilege of representing Ward 5 on the DC Council. And the reason for tonight's event is to hear feedback, thoughts, questions, concerns from residents, primarily in Ward 5, and specifically in the communities of Trinidad, Harbor Terrace, Langston Terrace, as these communities will be more immediately impacted by any future development at the RFK site. But we also know that there are many other neighbors from around the city, including in parts of Ward 7 and Kingman Park, also here. We welcome all of you, and we're really excited for this opportunity for you to learn more about what the mayor is proposing and what the commander's offering, but also for us to hear your feedback. Before I get started, I do want to just do some basic introductions. I'm going to change this on the fly. I was going to have them speak, but I'm going to just ask that they would just quickly raise their hand or stand. We have the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development for the District of Columbia, Nina Albert. She has been spearheading this project on behalf of Mayor Bowser. We're thrilled to have her to talk more about what's in this proposal. We have Mark Klaus, the President and CEO of the Commanders. And I am told the Commanders have some giveaways for folk who are inclined to take them. And so Mark can talk more about what that will look like. I would be remiss not to acknowledge community leaders past, present in the room. So if you are currently an ANC, formerly an ANC, or a civic leader in Ward 5 or throughout the city, if you could just please stand so we can acknowledge you. And thank you for your service. And then last but not least, as I mentioned, while this event is open to everyone, and again, we do expect a full event, there will be portions of tonight's event that is focused primarily on Carver, Langston, and Trinidad. And the reason for that is, as you can see by these communities being off of the Benning Street corridor, they will more immediately be impacted by any residual effects of development at the RFK site. A few housekeeping things. You will notice up here on the screen, we are using Mentimeter. Some of you may be familiar. It is an opportunity for us to engage directly while we go through the presentation. And so if you can pull up your phone or a device or laptop and go to menti.com. That's MENTI.com. And it may be a little hard to see, but at the top of the screen is the code that you're going to enter so that you can respond live to our questions. I'm going to read the code. It is 4227-7454. On your web browser, if you can go to menti.com, that will route you directly to the site, or you can scan the QR code on the screen, and you're going to use access code 4227-7454. If anyone is having trouble logging on, please raise your hand, and a member of my team will run to you to help you. I'm going to give people, we have someone over here that needs help. We will give you a second to log on. There will be a number of questions, but this is one main way that we're going to ask for your feedback, your thoughts, your questions through tonight's event. There will also be index cards provided. I'm noticing they are already in the there will be times where we will ask you to submit an index card with your question so that members of my team can compile them and we can be as efficient as possible in lifting them up and getting answers to them. One last time, we are using Mentimeter. On your web browser, if you could go to menti.com, and you're going to use access code 4227-7454. Everyone also should have received a packet. This packet includes everything you're going to see up here on the screen, in case the screen is hard for you to see. It also includes some questions that are embedded in Mentimeter. Obviously, if it's printed, you won't be able to respond in real time, but at least you will have access to it and can reflect or share with others after the meeting. Someone else needs help? Yep. Rochelle is coming. And then someone over here needs help. Oliver? A general flow of our event, we're going to have a very quick opening and frame, which I'm currently providing. We're going to hear a few words from Mark Klaus, the president and CEO of the Commanders. We will then hear from Deputy Mayor Nina Albert, as she will go through the presentation. Some of you may have already seen the presentation, but she's going to really sell this proposal to you and why it is such a good idea. And throughout her presentation and thereafter, we will have questions. And then I will popcorn in and out. A few things I will say before we formally get started with some of our questions is, again, anchoring on the why. I heard some Ward 7 neighbors say, why are they having this Ward 5? This development site is in Ward 7. And it's simply because this is a development project for the entire city. This deal, if there is a deal to be had, will require 7 votes on the council. And it's important to stress that what has been put out to the public so far is a proposal. It is a proposal that has been agreed to by the mayor's team and the commanders. But now it is time for the council to scrutinize the proposal and ultimately vote. It will require 7 votes. And so that is why I am having this listening session. On top of it being a significant development opportunity for the city, and it's important for me to hear from my neighbors, as I mentioned, it will have direct impact on Trinidad, Carver, Langston, as these communities abut the RFK site. There have also been many different media representations of where council members are on this proposal, and I'll just cut through the noise and just share my current thinking and where I'm hoping to go after tonight's presentation. As I've said, my hope is ultimately I'm hoping that we can get to a yes, as I think there is an opportunity for us to advance development at RFK. As I mentioned, the proposal before us is just that, a proposal, and I don't think it's good enough, quite frankly. I think we can do better. I think there are things and guarantees that I would want to see that would accrue benefits to all district residents and residents in Ward 5. I have been clear-eyed and straightforward with the commander's team, the deputy mayor's team, and so far we've had very productive conversation. And so part of what I'm hearing tonight will inform what I demand tomorrow and thereafter as we scrutinize this proposal and move forward. There have been questions on timeline. There has been a July date that has been thrown out. I will say, while the council will endeavor to meet that July date, it is seemingly unlikely that the council will come to some decision within 2 months because we have not even gotten the budget yet. And so we don't even have the budget, and I think it would be unrealistic and unfair to district residents for us to rush a proposal just to meet an arbitrary deadline. And I say that respectfully. And so the council will move with due diligence to do our work so that we can reach a deal. And then finally, I had previously released a statement, and I just want to go through some of the things I'm hoping to see as a output of this project. One of them is that there is no public dollars to the vertical building of a stadium. Like some of you, I believe strongly that public dollars should not go to building a stadium. And it is my understanding in the proposal before us, no public dollars are directed towards the vertical building of the stadium. Now that's a nuanced position because the district is investing a significant amount of money in this proposal. Much of that is for infrastructure and other goods. And how I see that is whether it was a stadium or some other use, the district would have to do those things. And it's not paying for the vertical build of the stadium. Secondly, I have followed up on the mayor's commitment to Senator Mike Lee to invest the value of the RFK site in National Park Service land throughout the district. There are significant parcels in Ward 5, including Fort Totten Park. I can think of Carter Bearing in Ward 4, and the list goes on. significant NPS land parcels that need direct investment that would pay huge dividends to district residents for future use. And as a condition of this project, I am expecting, hoping, demanding that there is a direct investment and the mayor makes good on her commitment to the senator. Third, there are currently festivals and other events held at the RFK site. Some of you may have heard me or saw in my statement, I mentioned the Globe Festival. And some people scratch their heads. The Globe Festival, I believe, is the largest festival currently held in the district. And the deputy mayor will have to check me on that. I think that's true. It's a large EDM festival. And whether you're into EDM or not, it yields some $30 million, I'm sorry, in direct financial benefit for the district annually. The expectation is that that event will grow to roughly $50 million in future years. That festival is held at RFK. And if there is not a plan for that festival in future years, we stand to lose that event to Maryland or Virginia. And therefore, we lose that economic impact. And so as part of this agreement, I am pushing that there is a plan for events that are currently held at RFK so that they can be held at a future site or somewhere else in the district. And then last but not least, as many of you know, I am a former educator. Education is important to me. We are in a school, one of our top schools in the district, and shout out to the Two Rivers team for hosting us tonight. Thank you. I am calling for an education fund, specifically for young people in wards 5, 7, and 8. And that's important because we know we have an opportunity gap in the district where less than a third of our young people are performing proficiently in literacy and math. And when you look at the performance of our students, it's usually students in wards 5, 7, and 8 that come up last when we're talking about academic performance. How great would such a development be to invest directly in the young people who will hopefully seize opportunities from whatever the development is at RFK in the future? Those are 4 of the things that I have laid out in my statement. I see a lot of our union partners are here, and I just want to acknowledge them as well. It is my full expectation that this deal will also honor commitments for a project labor agreement and labor peace agreements. And so, again, I hope you're getting the sense that you want the council to do our due diligence, to scrutinize this deal, to hopefully get to a yes and get it across the finish line, but to ensure that all district residents benefit from this. All right, I'm off my soapbox. Last thing I will say before we go through some of our slides is in what happens next. I will share, we had a conversation with the mayor and the CFO today regarding the budget. It is my understanding that the mayor's team will be pens down or pencils down today. And that's a technical term that the CFO uses, but that the mayor's team will be final in their deliberations with the CFO as of today. And I just want to give some context here. I'm not here to defend the mayor, but I do think there are any number of significant crises facing the city, including a budget crisis that was inflicted on us by Congress. And it is my understanding, and I take the mayor at face value, that this additional time has been about her and her team scrutinizing how can they cut somewhat now roughly $400 million in the fiscal year 25 budget. It was originally $1.1 billion. The mayor raised revenue by 6%, which shrunk that budget hole down to about $400 million. But so as that it would have the least negative impact on district residents. And so while yes, it's been frustrating, yes, it's been time consuming, figuring out where we are with the budget, I would much rather that than people lose their jobs or have a lack of clarity going into the summer. So just a little bit of grace there. But now that the mayor's pencils down, the CFO says they need 10 days to do what they need to do to cook the books, prepare everything, and publish it. So that puts us next Saturday, which runs right into Memorial Day. So the expectation is tentatively that we will have the budget on Tuesday, May 27th. And from there, the council will have 70 days to pass a budget. I won't get too in the weeds, but again, I think it would be unrealistic for us to scrutinize this proposal as part of the budget and pass it within that time frame. Although I do know that we will have conversations about this proposal as we go through that process. All right. RFK, we want to ask you some questions. Where do you live in the district? And so if you can go to your Mentimeter and respond, you should see in real time responses pop up. This just lets us know where people are in the Not surprising, we see Ward 5 in the back. And keep responding. You should be able to see in real time responses in your device as well. So even though we may move forward, you can still respond and we will collect and share out these responses afterwards. We will share it in this week's newsletter. And so if you're not signed up, you can see our table out front. We produce a weekly newsletter every Friday. All right, next question. First impressions, how are you feeling about the current proposal of the RFK statement site? I know you may not know all of the details, but based on what you've heard, this will provide us a baseline of where are you current proposal. And this ranges from strongly unfavorable to strongly favorable. This will give us a baseline, and I'm going to give you a heads up. We are going to ask this question at the end of the session, so that by the time you've heard from the commanders, Deputy Mayor Albert, she sells you. We want to see if this metric moves at all on your thoughts and feelings. All right, let's keep going. There have been conversations about amenities at the RFK site directly, and that is what this question is referring to. What amenities are most important to you at this site? You will see here included grocery stores, retail, sportsplex for DC residents, housing, restaurants, hotels. And I will note that many of these things are possible. It's not that we have to choose one over the other. This will give us a sense of what do you value more over another topic. What amenities are most important to you at the RFK site as part of this development deal? Yes, you're ranking them. All right, keep responses coming, but first we have housing. Second, we have public parks and recreation. Third, we have a grocery store. Fourth, we have a sportsplex for DC residents. Fifth, restaurants, or fifth, retail, then restaurants, hotels, and then NFL stadium ranks last. Again, this isn't to say one is good, one is bad, but this does give us a sense of what your priorities are as it relates to the RFK site. Next question. Now, this is coming out of the RFK site, thinking of the Benning Road corridor. So Benning Road is adjacent to where we are. Many would argue it has looked the same and has not maximized, we have not as a district maximized opportunities for this corridor in many decades. And here is a once in a generation opportunity to do that in conjunction with the development of RFK. So what possibilities do you see for the Benning Road corridor as part of this redevelopment? Responses I'm seeing include housing, grocery stores, dedicated transit lanes, road diets, transit-only lanes, affordable housing, jobs, expanded streetcar, dense mixed use. I'm assuming that's housing. Housing, not stadiums. Finishing the streetcar. Small business shops for walkable corridors. Better looking storefronts. Keep your responses coming. This is helpful information. I will say, and hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn, but Deputy Mayor Albert is a Ward 5 resident, by the way. And I've had pretty direct conversations with her about how can we not just maximize opportunities to Benning Road, but Rhode Island and other main corridors throughout our community. I'm very laser focused on that. So these ideas help yield real outcomes for what we can make possible. Sorry about that, Deputy Mayor. Green space, better transit, bike accessibility, pharmacy, affordable housing, metro, more restaurants, etc. All right, let's keep it going. For Carver, Langston, and Trinidad residents, what direct investment should the council member advocate for as part of the RFK development site? And my microphone just went out. For Carver, Langston, and Trinidad residents, what direct investments should I advocate for as part of the RFK development site? So for those that may not be familiar, we're currently in Langston, across from the historic Langston Golf Course. Not far from here is Carver Terrace, and we're down the street from Trinidad. So what are some of the things we should be advocating for these communities? The union jobs, metro, food, affordable housing, community center, environmental studies, transit, etc. All right, next question. These are some of the things that I mentioned in my opening statement that are important to me. Money towards the building of the stadium, a dedicated education fund, NPS land, a dedication, making sure we protect current revenue generating festivals and events that are housed at RFK. It's asking, are you supportive of these priorities? It gives me feedback of whether I'm in alignment with my community. So thank you. All right, we're going to keep going for the sake of time. And I'm speeding through intentionally because I want to maximize the opportunity for you all to get your questions in versus listening to me. What are some of the other development possibilities you see for the RFK site? So sky's the limit. What are some other things you would like to see? This is a massive site. In the current proposal, there are any number of things being proposed, but what are some other ideas? Housing, nature center, recreation, sports complex, and parks. This is public land. It should not be given to a billionaire for $5. Equestrian events, outdoor concert venue, park space, like Northeast Central Park, a skate park, my property value increase, community center. All right. And you will notice there are no wrong answers. Again, I want your honest feedback because that's going to allow us to get to the best deal possible. So keep it coming. Keep skate park. I guess someone doesn't agree with that. All right, let's keep going. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Mayor Albert. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to invite Mark Klaus, President and CEO of the Commanders, to share a few words. After him, we will have Deputy Mayor Albert walk us through this presentation, and then there will be more opportunities for you to engage. But give it up for Mark Klaus. Thank you. If you can stay there.
Normally, I don't require a mic, but I want to make sure it's here, so that's good. Thank you. So terrific to be here tonight. Thank you so much to Councilman Parker for having us here to listen, and I really couldn't agree more with the thesis of why this makes sense to be having these opportunities to hear from the community. This is a project that, albeit located in Ward 7, as Councilmember said, this impacts the district. And we think in a fairly profound way at a time when the district really needs it. And I can tell you that as we've entered into this conversation and started the dialogue from the beginning, three things I would share. First is, when we imagine what success looks like, this is not about building a stadium. Obviously, that is an important part of what we're going to use. But honestly, the goal here needs to be to create a world-class community. A community that, in fact, the stadium will only occupy around 16% of the acres that are there. And when I see the list of the things that are being asked for as part of the goal for RFK, the great news is we would completely agree with everything that you have on the list. The idea that the stadium can be the surest and the fastest way to delivering on those objectives I think is where we would suggest these things can live together to create this truly a jewel within the district and something that can accommodate the community in an incredible way. I think that the second thing is we do believe the stadium and the development of the site can be a real economic engine for the district, whether you look at it through the lens of jobs, economic investment, revenues, all of those areas. This is an opportunity to bring to bear a substantial investment in the community, and that's why we're so excited about it. And then for those Commander fans that are out there, we also do see it as a return to the spiritual home of the football team and an opportunity to come back to where there were so many great memories over so many years. And so, but in doing this, we want to make sure that we're spending the time to hear from the communities on what's important to you and make sure that we strive to make this a win for everybody. So I look forward to hearing your guys' input and questions as we go through these. Anything else?
There's a some steps over here that you really got to move forward. First of all, I just want to thank Mr. Klaus and also Andy Van Horn, who's here with him, to have the president and CEO of a major NFL team here to meet with the community shows tremendous commitment. So thank you so much, Mark, for being here, and Andy for being here. It really matters. So I just want to start that way. Okay, so my role in all of this today is to really walk you through so that everybody has an understanding of what we are proposing. And so let's get going. The first thing that I'd like to do is to really start off with context about how big this site is. The RFK site is 180 acres. And just for a little bit of history, this site was purchased by the federal government in the 1960s. And it was purchased with the single purpose of being home to an NFL stadium, to RFK Stadium. And even in the lease that the District of Columbia has or had with the federal government, the only use that we could use the property for, this entire 180 acres, was for a stadium and ancillary recreational uses. That's why nothing else on this 180 acres has been built for all these years except to house a stadium. When the mayor has been negotiating for over the past 10 years, trying to get control of the site because we knew that our lease with the National Park Service was ending, her vision has always been to have mixed-use development. And so you all voted on some things and amenities you want to see at the site. As I looked through that, I said to myself, we can have all of those things. That's always been the vision, is to have all of those things. And so just like in the past, where we struck a deal with the federal government, it came into district hands, and now we're permitted to build something and put it into productive use, I look often to the Capitol Riverfront, which used to be owned by the federal government. And through a series of negotiations, we were able to partner with them to build not only a stadium in the form of Nats Park, but the Capitol Riverfront all around the stadium is not exactly the same size. It's hard to kind of draw exact boundaries because that's a neighborhood that kind of, has evolved over time. But now the Capitol Riverfront is about the same scale as RFK. And so you can see the amount of housing, restaurants and bars, office and hotels that are in an approximate size of neighborhood to what we'll be delivering at RFK. And then, there's one last point that's really important, which is when the district issued bonds to build Nats Park, we issued 30-year bonds. We know that we have paid back those bonds 10 years early. And that's because of the productivity of a neighborhood delivering much faster because it had a strong anchor. And that's been our history in the District of Columbia. When we invite an anchor to a site, it accelerates development much more quickly. Okay, let's go to the next. Okay, so as we look at why we're investing in certain things now, particularly as we're facing a very complicated economy, the mayor's commitment is really to invest in things that generate jobs and have certainty of delivery. In our current economic climate, where we are at risk of losing federal jobs, it's very important that we replace those jobs as quickly as possible. And I'll share with you what our projections for those jobs are at the end of this. Next. So just to get oriented to the site, I mentioned 180 acres. Right now, we've divvied up the site into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zones. The first zone is the purple zone, which we're calling the stadium district, and that's where the stadium will go. It will basically replace the current stadium. And then there's 2 other areas that the commanders will develop. The first is the orange area, the plaza district. And the second area is the blue area, the riverfront district. So again, for some context of how big this is, or small, depending on how you look at it, the stadium itself is approximately 15 to 20 acres. The orange area is about the size of a wolf. So 1 wolf. The blue area, and I'm talking about in terms of land mass, right? It's about 26 acres. I know the wolf because I worked on it. So that's why I keep referencing that. The blue is another one. And so you can get a sense of scale. The 2 areas that the district will continue to control and manage is the green, which is the recreation area. We made a commitment that the 3 fields that are there, we're going to try and not disturb them during any kind of construction. And then that green area will also host and be home to a sports. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then the yellow is another area that the district is hanging on to because we would like to make sure that other developers have an opportunity to develop, and that's Kingman Park District, and we will release that for an RFK. So none of this has been fully planned out yet, but we've started to identify areas that are logical kind of neighborhoods or quadrants within the larger context of this 180 acres. Okay, so let's talk about money, because at the end of the day, when you look at it, that's the question. And the most important number to remember is $2.7 billion. The single largest private investment in the District of Columbia's history ever. We've never had a partner. I've been doing economic development in and around the district for over 20 years. I've never seen a private commitment. And it matters. It really matters in a time when today the district is really having to look for new investments in private partners. This is an important private partner. So what's the district's commitment? $500 million to put into what we call horizontal infrastructure. In order to deliver this site, if it was going to be 100% housing, which I've heard some people want, we need to put money into the site to make that even possible, at a minimum of 500. So just to bring water, sewer, and other, road network, that costs money. And in a public-private deal, almost always the district makes a contribution because these are publicly owned utilities. We did that at McMillan, we did it at St. Elizabeth's, we did it at Hill East, we've done it at the Wharf, we've done it at almost every single project we've done, unless it's a single deal. This is good. There's also a contribution to parking. And so we're looking initially at building 2 parking garages. Basically the split between the cost to build these garages is split between the commanders and it's not the district, it's events DC, but it shows up on the district ledger. So $181 million for parking, because an NFL stadium needs parking. And if we did not have parking, we would hear from other neighbors who are concerned about parking being in the neighborhood. So this is what's required, and this is the deal. I personally feel very good. Now, there's this other component, because there's more money. There's this other component about the district wanting to own the parking again. So it can be municipally owned. And so there's a structure where we can buy out Anders' ownership or interest in. So the question is this a good deal or not? And so we look at the history in the District of Columbia about whether or not what has been public investment in stadiums. So back in 1997, everybody holds up Abe Poland's commitment to building the stadium, right? It was significantly privately funded. Abe Poland funded 77% of the cost of the stadium, and the district funded 20% cost of the arena. For Nats Park, it's almost completely funded by the district. So 96%. In today's dollars, what we committed to build Nats Park for is now in today's dollars about $1 billion. I just want to give people some context as to the commitment that we've made in the past and the benefits that we've received over the years as a result of those investments. Audi Field, the District of Columbia paid 38% of the total cost. For Care First, we put in 93% of the total cost. We basically built that with some private investment. And then Capital One Arena, just most recently, that $515 million, that represents 64% of the total cost. So let's go to the next slide. So on this project, we are, the district is only funding 24% of the total project costs. So even compared to our own track record in the district, we are on par with the person who we revere as one of the best deals in DC history, which is Abe Poland's investment in Capital One Arena, or back then NCI. So you just got to understand the scope and scale of this particular investment and put it into context. When you ask how the district did on this deal compared to other cities, you can see them compared to other cities. And these are recent NFL stadiums that have been built. So we did significantly better. And the commitment from this team is significantly better. And so we think that we have a great partnership with the Commanders. And so the question of, is this a good deal? We hope that we've shared some data that talks to you about why it is, and you can make your decision if you don't believe it is. Next. There's more money. This is $202 million, and this is to build out road infrastructure. And I get asked all the time about whether or not there's an opportunity to build a new metro station. And I think that the vicinity that people are interested in are close to Benning Road and Oklahoma Avenue. So I asked Metro this. We asked Metro, can you build a new entrance? And they said that we need to study it. That was their answer to us. They can't tell us the feasibility and the cost of it right now. So we're funding a study for them to do that. And so there's an intent, there's an interest, but they need to understand it because, and I used to work for Metro. I don't know if any of you know that, but, and it, you know, there's a complexity to it. It also unlocks the opportunity that if it's feasible, that they can seek federal funding from DOT. That's how so many Metro investments have been funded, as well as look at the region, because we believe that this is a project that is justified for, you know, if there were to be a new station built. So anyway, lots of investment there. And then, you know, we are studying and have to study the transportation network, right? So we've looked at other urban stadiums and, you know, there's a different context if you build out in suburbia, you know, where you have a lot of land and you don't need to build a garage, but you can do surface parking lots. So in this context, we believe that structured parking and reducing the footprint of parking is very important. And we've also taken a look at the capacity of Metro and all the other ways that people get to stadiums. And when the Commanders and we began our conversation, they had a different number in mind about how many parking spaces would be structured. And I think we've come to a number that we all feel very comfortable with, which is that 8,000 structured parking spaces is the way to accommodate it because the site is well served by Metro. It is well served by Metro. And the question is, do we need to further expand it, especially as more development comes online around the stadium, which doesn't exist today? Next. Okay, so Councilmember Parker, I think you've got a question for the group, and I've seen heads shaking and nodding and, you know, saying no, so we'll see how this.
So this question is intuitive. The project currently proposes 8,000 parking spots. What are your thoughts? That's too much, that's not enough, I'm not sure. It's just the right amount. Keep your responses going. Again, there are no right or wrong answers. This gives us valuable feedback as we go forward. The question is there data on other stadiums in other jurisdictions? And the answer is yes, we do have. Say that again? Understood. Okay, we're gonna keep going for the sake of time, and let's keep going.
Okay, so people always ask me about the opportunities for residential. So we've done a test fit, which is just kind of scoping to figure out how much can be accommodated. We are estimating 5,000 to 6,000 housing units. I want to let you know that we have not completed master planning, right? Like, we're at the beginning of that process. Our deal today is about the stadium with the Commanders, and then the planning for the rest of the site and the mix of uses that go through a regular process, master planning process. But right now, we can estimate, given how much land there is, how much housing we think can be accommodated, and we're looking at 5,000 to 6,000 units. I want to point out one very important thing. This property is part of the Anacostia Waterfront Initiative, and the Anacostia Waterfront Initiative has the highest affordable housing requirements in the city. And it mandates that 30% of all housing units delivered are at 30% of AMI and below and 60% of AMI and below. So why am I saying that? I just want to point out that the RFK site falls within the Anacostia framework plan and has that different and higher level of affordable housing than any of our other projects. So we're, as you know, the mayor is very bullish on affordable housing, highly committed to it. She's committed over her 10 years, $1.5 billion to support affordable housing. We just re-upped our commitment for $100 million in HBTF in the FY26 budget. And so this commitment to affordable housing continues and is part of her commitment. And then last but not least, we do want to talk about recreation, because we've heard from so many of the youth leagues and teams and schools how important these fields are and how our young people are going out to other jurisdictions to get access to indoor facilities. So in our proposal here is $89 million for a sportsplex. This is something that the mayor has put in her budget for the last 4 years and has been taken out. And so we're putting it back in the budget again, because we think that delivering the sportsplex to serve our youth and all of the demands on sports facilities is important for this campus to include. And then last but not least, and an important reminder, is that this land continues to be owned by the National Parks. And as the condition of the transfer of jurisdiction between MPS and the district is that 30% of all of the land will be maintained as open and green space. And so there is an incredible opportunity, and I remind people all the time, you know, we're so familiar with the 1,600 acres that comprises the Rock Creek Park system, and we all celebrate the greenery and the beauty of the park system. This is part of a 1,200 acre Anacostia Park system. And so the opportunity with this site to unlock access to Kingman Island, to Heritage Island, to connect all the bike trails and the walking trails that are along the river is just really important, I think, as an amenity and as an asset, and as our stewardship of of the cleanup of the Anacostia. So excited about that as well. Okay, so I've heard people tell me that there's only going to be 10 events a year, and so why should we pay for a facility that's only for 10 events? So one of the major commitments that the Commanders have made is to put a roof on the stadium. This changes completely the dynamic of how you use the stadium. And so there's 10 NFL games, very obviously. There's also an opportunity for, by the way, let me just put, to fill a 65,000 seat stadium, there's only a few entertainers that can really do that. So at that scale, we're talking about 10 major concerts like that. So it's not like 100, that's just not realistic. There's a handful of Beyoncés in the world and Taylor Swifts and whoever all the hottest artists are. So that's what we're looking at. So what are all these other activations and events? We all the time deal with a convention center that hosts major conventions saying we don't have enough space when people want to have, kind of a dinner or an after convention event. So there's those kinds of events that we know today is there's pent up demand to have another kind of location for those kinds of corporate events to go to or association events to go to. There's that kind of stuff. And then there's all other kinds of sports teams that want to use the field and host events. And then the list goes on, and you see some of the logos of the types of events that would be held here. And the commanders are estimating that they can use the stadium for for events big and small, approximately 200 times a year. So it won't be the 10 event that's just false narrative. And I just want to make sure that people understand that that the commanders are very committed to. Next. And then last but not least, I'm going to come back to where I started, which is jobs. And that's the moment that we're in, and that this project is important now because it has certainty of delivery. So in the construction of the project alone over the next 4 years, we're estimating 1,000 jobs. And then as importantly are those permanent jobs the stadium is operating. And so the stadium itself will generate 2,000 permanent jobs. So they will employ people once the stadium's open. I also want to point out one other number that I think is really important. $14 billion in direct spending. So what is direct spending? These are direct contracts for contractors to deliver this project. And that is just something that you can count on. And that is really important right now for our contractors who are starting to see slowing in the building environment just because of economic conditions. And then that doesn't count the mixed use districts. We can tighten up our ranges of jobs and of what total tax revenue is from the mixed use districts once we have a full program. But this is our estimate right now for the mixed use districts. And then people ask all the time, what's the return on investment to the district for this commitment up front? It's $4 billion over the next 30 years in taxes coming back to the District of Columbia. And I will tell you, you can take a look at almost all of the estimates that we've done for other major investments in this city. And these are conservative numbers because that's how economists estimate things. So anyway, that's, where we are in terms of what our estimate is for 180 acres being delivered. So with that, I will turn this back over to the council member, and I know that there'll be plenty of questions.
Yes. All right, we're going to now get to our Q&A portion, but another question in Mentimeter. Do you think the current deal is a good deal for DC? Yes, no, I'm not sure. Again, there is no right or wrong answer, but this gives us a pulse on, based on what you heard, your general response. And keep those responses coming. Next slide, we're gonna now ask you, how could the current deal be improved? Based on what the deputy mayor has laid out, in terms of the return to the district, jobs, public benefits, in what ways could it be improved? No above ground parking, no parking garages, union jobs for hotel restaurants, labor peace agreements for all hotels and restaurants. Yes, build it. Let's let it be union jobs, affordable housing, more green space, exploring other options or other options than a stadium. More housing, metro, less parking, union jobs, no $500 million stadium only infrastructure subsidy. Way less parking, skate park. Someone really wants a skate park. Bridge updates for better bikes and walking, local vendor preference, less public funding, no 90-year leases, lease land for the stadium, homes, not stadiums, union jobs, labor peace. I'll read a few more of these. Couldn't be council's turn to approve. It couldn't be improved. It's the council's turn to approve. New metro station with parking and streetcar connect. And this is a huge investment. Do we really want to invest in football? That destroys people's brains. All right, let's keep going for the sake of time. This is another slide in terms of timeline. I think it is realistic to say that we're looking at somewhere in this fall for this deal to really be scrutinized by the council. I think from a frame of reference, Deputy Mayor, not to put you on the spot, but Nat Stadium, I want to say took a year. DC United, I think took 6 months or somewhere in that ballpark. So just giving you a frame of reference of other major stadium like deals, how long it took. That doesn't mean that that's what it will take, but just frame of reference. And here's a rendering of what it could look like, courtesy of the mayor's team. All right, let's keep going. Share your questions, thoughts, and reactions. Now we're gonna do this in multiple ways. You can enter your questions. I would prefer questions than thoughts, but share your thoughts as well. And then also if you wanna use index cards, if you're not really handy with the phone or device, you can use your index card, raise your hand, and a member of my team will come in and collect the cards from you. Well, we wanted to make sure we did it in an efficient way. And we anticipate some of the questions will be repeat. So there will be some people we will ask to elaborate. It's good to see you. Deputy Mayor Albert said the $500 million infrastructure is necessary to prepare the whole site. But the term sheet says that only $202 million and $500 million is stadium infrastructure only. Which is it? Can you?
I'm glad you got that clarification. Hello. The 500 million is for the infrastructure on the site that will serve the stadium and around the stadium. The 200 million is in addition to that to develop out the rest of this, the transportation network to serve the site. So it's both. It's 500 million for the horizontal infrastructure to support the stadium development, and another 202 million to develop out portions of the rest of the site.
Awesome. Sorry about the microphone situation. Here's some other questions coming through. What is the total value of the district's proposed investment, including site infrastructure, parking garages, tax abatements, rent concessions, and transfer of development rights to the commanders? And I'm gonna, is this microphone not working? Okay.
So it is, if we, well, okay, there's the wait, what was the total? Okay, the total investment to get the stadium open day one, okay, let's do it that way, is $500 million plus 202 million. Against DC, if you recall, is 180. So that's to get yes. In the future, we would like to buy the parking garages. So in 2032, we're talking about buying purchases. That is an additional 75.
Awesome. I will just add on to that the ballpark that council members have been talking about is that this will be roughly $1 billion of district investment over time. That's not all upfront. And it's worth contextualizing that with the stated benefits of the development, but also keeping in mind what the deputy mayor said. forget what you call it, the price value for different times. So we may have invested in the war for Noma or other parts of the city in 20 years ago, but in today's dollars, it very well might be comparable to what we're talking about. What capital projects will you need to take funding from to deliver for the RFK site? And again, we anticipate we will receive the mayor's certified budget on May 27th. What will the average attendance and revenue of those 100 private events be at the stadium?
So it'll, events.
Much better.
This will be the only roof stadium of this size. So when you think about major events,
All right, next question. Can you give a breakdown of how you get to $4 billion in tax revenue over 30 years?
So here is a widely adopted program. There's lots of different economic models that professionals and economic use, and that's one of them. And so what you'll do is, the way that the model is built is that it needs to know how many square feet it needs to know the use of that square footage. And what it can do based on all this data that the model has, that the companies have been using over decades, it can say, okay, if you build one house, there's and they'll need to go down and say, is it rental or is it owned? Because there's different outputs on how much economic productivity generate from like a owned resident versus a rented resident versus a retail store versus an office. So from that, modeling that is widely adopted by economists, that's how those numbers get generated. It was done by a third party, not done by NetHead, not done by Columbia, but that is how it was.
Okay. So the question, we got it for the sake of time. So I'm just restating for those that may not have heard. The question is, can you speak to some of the assumptions that were entered into that model in order to get that out?
I'm not gonna, I can't run through every single, okay? I'm not gonna, I can.
We can attempt to follow up on that.
But
Yeah.
I have to say, you guys have to think about the position. As I said, you want to go in the RFK at all. Okay, so that's another perspective.
One second.
There's no problem. exactly the way it is. No, there's two other choices. Okay?
One second.
Choice number two is everything but stadium. And you can do what, you know, or have some boys. Okay, that's yeah, well, and then no. There's two other choices. Which is the stadium with mixed use development around it, including with mixed use. That seems like a combination of housing, retail, office, restaurants, everything.
And I think just to make 1 second, one second. Okay, respectfully. So the deputy mayor is trying to answer. We are trying to get through questions. We are going to open up the floor, but we want to maximize time. I will just be transparent. When you float a mic around the room, it's not always the most efficient in terms of people repeating questions, some people wanting to elaborate. So we thought it was best to get through as many rapid fire questions as possible before we circulate the mic. So I'm just going to ask that you all respect the program. I'm going to ask that the deputy mayor finish her response. She's saying there's three options available to the district. No development, development with a stadium, development with something other than a stadium.
In a stadium, or just mixed use development without a stadium. So we have tried to develop that. And that is mixed use development. And out of the 4 acres, 5 still have not delivered 30 acres. Because there's no catalyst. There's no, development is occurring. So if you want development, you want to see RFK. The fastest and surest way to do it is to have that has been time and time again. And that has been our experience. So that's the, and that's what I think here. That those are facts about how long it takes to develop if you don't have a capital. I believe that we're going to be in 20 years, we will not have anything. I do not believe that there's enough economic activity and value in this site without the stadium to deliver.
Excuse me. So I've already asked now 3 times respectfully. And so I really don't want someone to be escorted out of the meeting. I'm going to ask, for the sake of those watching and others in the room who also think their questions are valuable, that we please proceed with questions. So next question would be, understood. The next question is, I live in Trinidad. Now I used to live. Understood. Absolutely. So last time I'm going to ask that we please proceed with the question. The next question is, I live in Trinidad. Now I used to live in Carver Langston. I've had a union housekeeping job for 5 years. I make $30 an hour with healthcare. Will the hotel and restaurant jobs be union jobs like mine? Will there be a project labor agreement for all of the development parcels at the site?
those conversations are jobs. Really, honestly, that is what that's
Commissioner, but I'm asking, please, let's let our guests finish and then we will get to, if you have a question, we're asking you write it down or enter it here. So, Mr. Klaus, if you can finish.
Yeah, no, so that's the goal, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation with find the best path forward. Thanks.
Awesome. And I will say on the fact sheet, it does mention project labor agreements. My conversations with Local 23 and Local 25 is that there hasn't been an MOU or an agreement established, although the value has been expressed in the fact sheet. It would be my full expectation that we would have project labor agreements, labor peace agreements as part of this deal, just like we've had at other major development sites. So that's where I am, and that's where I imagine. But I do want to acknowledge in the fact sheet, the commander's team has stated that they anticipate a project labor agreement. We're going to add a labor peace agreement as part of that as we move forward. There is another question. The deal says the city will own the stadium, but not benefit from any of the stadium revenue. How much revenue does the team expect each game to generate, and why isn't that shared with the district? So the city will own the stadium, but not benefit from any of the stadium revenue. How much revenue does the team expect, and why isn't it shared with the district?
So maybe I can start, and then the mayor's office can respond as well. So as you can imagine, part of the architecture of this deal is a partnership of investing dollars together. We're investing $2.7 billion, which again is the largest private investment that the district has ever had. It's designed to be the catalyst for developing the community, and it will generate revenue that will generate the taxes that were discussed as part of it. So in the end, the revenue generation and the economic development in the overall project will generate both taxes, but it will also generate revenue for small businesses that are supporting the stadium. When you think about what's necessary to operate a stadium, this is a tremendous opportunity for small businesses across the district to be part of that and generating revenue as well. And so there's a variety of different ways that I think the community will see that return on investment. And one thing that's been interesting, we've studied every stadium project that we can find. And one of the strongest track records of performance on return for sports complexes and stadiums is actually DC. It is a fact. And when you see that list of projects, they have proven out. And so I think we've got a good blueprint to build off of and learn from, but that's how we see where that return on investment really will come from the city.
Awesome. Next question. Does the 30% of open green space include the existing fields? If so, how much is left over once the fields are accounted for?
So if we can, so yes, it does include the existing fields. There's also another 30 acres along the waterfront. And then there's a number, I don't know exact acreage because we've calculated what the 30% equals. And so there's also green space embedded throughout, you're talking about a potentially large development outside of the stadium. So we need green space throughout the neighborhood as well. So it includes all of those, the neighborhood green spaces, the 30 acres along the water, as well as the fields that currently exist there now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Total.
75
It's
acres of
incremental.
green space out of the 180 acre total.
75 acres green space out of 180 total.
Yeah, and that 75 includes the fields that are there.
I have another question for you, Deputy Mayor. Can you speak about the $100 million shortfall facing the district? Is it really the best time to be investing in a stadium when we might have to cut services and furlough city employees? One thing I will say is the budget crisis we are facing is important to note that is fiscal year 25, which will end at the end of September, regardless of the stadium deal. And the stadium deal is being proposed in the fiscal year 26 budget and across the financial plan. So I just think it's important to differentiate those two things.
Okay. So the most important thing to make sure people understand is where the $500 million is coming from. It's in what we call the capital budget. Capital can only be used, by definition, it can only be used for facilities and infrastructure, hard things, tangible facilities and structure. It cannot be used for paying teachers or anything else and programs. So the operating budget, which is what pays for all the many of the programs, is being untouched by this project. And all of the school program that we had on track, that is being untouched by this commitment. So there's this distinction between the operating budget, which pays for services for our residents, and the capital budget, which is only allowed to be used for facilities. I hope that's helpful clarification.
All right, a few more questions, and we're happy to open it up in our remaining time. How will we ensure the development RFK is economically accessible for residents in a way that the wharf is not? Who is this really for?
I'm going to answer this question, and then, look, so the wharf is 23 or 26 acres. It's 180 acres. What was the math on the development? Oh, 90 acres of development. When you bring on that much, you can provide so much more diversity of different types of housing and so I think that we are going to have a very different opportunity here. I also think that the commitment that we all have is to Ward 7 residents to have opportunities in jobs and contracting opportunities, but it's for the whole city. But we are very focused on making sure that this project over the course of the year integrated with the neighborhoods that surround it, isn't an island. And I think that the wharf is slightly different. And also just where different project with different opportunities. This project and opportunity, I think, is going to be much more organic in terms of how it integrates. More like the yard, just because of its scale, you just have so many more opportunities. So I don't know if you want to say anything to this.
Yeah, I'll add one thing. One of the things that we haven't talked explicitly about, but the power of the roof on the stadium, right? How does that affect housing and jobs? Because we're active 200 nights a year. This is not like a traditional stadium where you might have part-time workers that are part of the stadium staff. This is an opportunity for us to develop permanent jobs that are part of the community. And I think in the ability to build out the community, that's going to be part of the vision. Interestingly enough, I spent 6 years as the CEO of Campbell Soup Company, which is based in Camden, New Jersey. And I watched Camden try to develop. And the thing that they struggled with the most in Camden was they built housing, but they didn't have all of the community services in place. So they didn't have the grocery stores, they didn't have the healthcare, they didn't have the education. They built housing without that infrastructure. As we envision the development of this, that master plan will ensure that we're getting the services as part of the development with the stadium. And I think that's a really important learning in community. Please take a look. Go to cities that have started with only housing and see the services are really important. You don't get the grocery store built in those initial phases, that'll be a challenge. And I can tell you, we're really committed to working with the community and the mayor's office to make sure that happens.
Awesome. Mark, I think this one is for you. Are there guarantees for the surrounding housing and retail development miles? For example, are the commanders required to develop the plaza and riverfront districts by a certain date?
Yeah, we're working. Obviously, we're going to want to move and try to build that community as quickly as we can. You're going to see development happening in parallel. Obviously, it's a major project to get the stadium started, but the idea would be that you're building out that infrastructure and community as rapidly as we can. But just to give everybody comfort, that's not going to be the commanders just out on its own developing it. This is a collaboration that we're going to have with the district to make sure that as we envision what that community becomes, that we're working together to develop it. There is a very, very strong relationship and collaboration to do that, but we're incented to move as quickly as we can, I think, to keep building that community.
There's another question. Have you thought of an equestrian event or a dog show? I'm happy to take this. There are ongoing discussions around how to use the district operated green space and land, whether that be for any number of sports activities, recreational activities. So I don't know if there has been any ironed out plans for anything, I think it's fair to say. I have not heard anything about an equestrian or a dog show, but happy to put that on the list now that that is part of the feedback as we think through what should that green space be used and dedicated for. A couple more here. Are there any plans to redevelop the Benning Road corridor and bring healthier food options to Carver Langston residents?
Oh, hey, this works. Sorry, little baby one. Okay, so we are right now working. So retail has changed significantly, and the restaurant business has also changed significantly. So at this very moment, what we're trying to do is do a new retail study for the whole city, because we need to see where the trends are, because we have so many retail corridors that need an infusion of new energy and new investment. So that's number one, just post-pandemic, and with the advent of so much online retail, we just have to think more holistically. But practically, when we look at Benning, I used to live on 8th Street Northeast, and I think of how long the corridor is from Union Station all the way down to the Starburst, right? And then over the bridge, Benning. And so given the length of that, when you have long, like the ideal like retail walkable corridor is about 4 blocks long, double loaded with retail on both sides. People like walking that. But 8th Street's like 1.5 miles long. So when you have a long retail corridor like that, you want what I call a bookend on each side. Union Station on one end, RFK Stadium on the other. That starts to fill in the rest of the corridor. So that's how, when you see healthy, especially very long commercial corridors, that they have kind of a bookend on either side, and probably, given the length of 8th Street and Benning, something in the middle. So you've got to plan that way. And when we take a look at what the Yards did, or the ballpark, if you look at the health of Barracks Row today compared to 20 years ago, even though Barracks Row is quite a, it's not an easy walk from the Yards, there is a confidence that investors have when there is a major anchor nearby, that traffic, and I don't mean car traffic necessarily, but that, the heads, the wallets, the people passing by are there to purchase. And so there are several corridors that we think are going to benefit the most from development at RFK. 8th Street Northeast is one. Minnesota Benning is another. We're looking at how we can make sure that Nanny Helen Burroughs benefits from this. And I do think that there's going to be benefits down in Ward 8. And we've talked a lot about how we make that connection like pretty seamless over to Ivy City as well. So we have to be intentional, but that's our goal. We want healthy neighborhood retail throughout the city.
And I would just plug, that is a big focus of mine. I imagine the conversations will turn to Benning Road Corridor pretty quickly. And so please share your input. What are some of the things you would like to see on this corridor? I agree we need more healthier food options in this part of the city. We need greater access into options. I would also plug that we are advancing work on Rhode Island Avenue to build and expand amenities on that corridor, thanks to the Office of Planning and the great work that they're doing in concert with our office and the Deputy Mayor's team. All right, I'm going to ask a few people, if you have a burning question, to raise your hand. And we're not going to be able to get to everybody. I'm going to ask the Kingman Park Commissioner if you could just stand up and ask your question, and then I'll ask others to raise their hand after she gets your question. But I see.
And it's not just Kingman Park that doesn't want this. People are keeping all of the
That's not true. I'm sorry, that's not true.
For the sake of time, I hear the question.
Okay, we just need truth.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to make sure everyone.
Yeah.
100%. Yes.
We got it. Not trying to rush, but we are on the clock. The question there is, can we get a commitment from the commanders to come and engage the community? I'm happy to follow up with the team. I will note that the team joined Councilmember Felder, I believe, earlier this week. They're here tonight. This is not the end of their engagement, and so I am more than sure they will be willing to do that, and I'm happy to help make that happen if need be. Commissioner, say it again. I mean, I can't speak for the commanders, but what I will say is, instead of us negotiating that right now, I will help facilitate that and follow up.
I'm here. I'm happy to come. I'm happy to come visit the community for sure.
Great.
Absolutely, 100%.
So we're not going to have time to get to everybody, but I do want to ask the commissioner for this area to go. I'll go to former Commissioner Henderson, get to this gentleman in the back, and then former commissioner over here. And then we're sadly going to have to formally close out, although we're still happy to take your questions. So Commissioner, and I'm going to ask that we make it quick. Yes. So Commissioner, if I can, I'm going to rephrase that question a little bit and then invite our guests to share, like, why is this deal asking district taxpayers to invest in versus the team fronting the bill?
So I would say that the way we'd like you to understand or to see the benefit of this for the community is that we're investing together with the district. We're investing money together to develop a site right now that is sitting with a stadium that is eroding and falling apart, and that we're partnering together to develop a site, right? Just to make it clear, as the mayor, deputy mayor said tonight, that the investment that the district is making in the infrastructure of the site, building roads, sewer, water, transportation, it is important to develop this location, and our ability to invest then together. And look, I understand the question. The significance of the amount of investment in this is something that we hope is recognized as a different kind of commitment. When you look at any other stadium deal anywhere in the country, there is no organization that has made the commitment that Josh has made. Right? From the minute that he started with this team, his commitment was to the community in a different way. And you see that in this structure. There is no other stadium being built in the country that has the level of commitment of private dollars like this one. And we hope that by the time we get done working through this with the council and the community, that you will see it as an investment in the future of the district, not giving money to the commanders, but investing in the development of RFK. And that's our job, to try to ensure that you see that, right? And the jobs, the level of jobs that I think will come out of this development are going to cross the entire gamut. I think the question I get frequently is, stadiums employ a lot of part-time employment. Our putting a roof on this means 200 nights a year, there's activity going on. And that's everything from culinary teams to maintenance teams to engineering. You name it, to run a stadium, it takes a significant number of folks. And by opening it as much as we are, we see it as a much stronger way to ensure that there are long-term permanent jobs that can create careers at RFK. And that's really the goal. And that's the hope that we can deliver. Yeah, but 200 nights a year being active in the stadium, all of the maintenance and support that goes into this, I can assure you that when you look at other domed or roof stadiums across the country, there are jobs there that are long-term permanent jobs that people build. And that's really the hope. And that's why it was so important to the mayor and why we felt it was important.
This is what I'm going to do, because I do want to be respectful of the Two Rivers team's time. And I know they're looking at the clock and we need to get out. I want former Commissioner Henderson, the gentleman in the green and blue, and then over here, if you can ask your question. And before we give answers, if we can put the questions out there, we're going to rapid response, and so we can exit and the Two Rivers team can go. It's been a long day for them. I'm gonna, in a second, gentlemen in the blue and green, can we go with your question for the sake of time?
Not want promises. Birthday, all of those businesses. I work on the state. Don't stick your hands in our pockets and tell us, well, we want economic. Yes, we want that.
Thank you for your feedback. The gentleman in the blue and green. Sir, the gentleman in the blue and green. Very concerned for what this it's going to be a good skate park. All crazy. By skateboarders, private contractors. I'm looking for some kind of skateboarding. I really appreciate that. I am not prepared to give that guarantee, but I hear you and I take to heart your feedback. I will follow up on that. As I mentioned earlier, there are ongoing conversations around what does the district-owned parcels look like, what activities are on them. What I'm hearing from you is a similar concern I have for the festivals that are currently held at RFK, that we don't want to displace productive uses of the current site. And so this, frankly, is my first time hearing about that skating park. And so thank you for educating me on that. And I can commit that I will follow up on it. Quick question. Do you have a sense of what the current size or footprint of the skate park is? Understood. Thank you. Mr. Lee.
Morning. Good evening, brother. Clarence Lee, I live in Trinidad and been a Ward 5 resident all my life. I attended games at RFK, things at FedEx Field. Like to see them stadiums come back, but also would like to know why we have to develop areas around it. We've enjoyed it when it was RFK. We enjoyed it when RFK was Raggy. We enjoyed that area around it. And why does it need to be developed with stores? We've got retail stores on 8th Street are closing, restaurants are closing. Union Market now going there, there's closed restaurants and market. So I don't know where the stimulus is going to come from. But current business is going out of business in Ward 5 and on 8th Street corridor. So just like to see some kind of guarantee, well, there's no guarantee. We just like to keep the park like it is around. Yeah. Give us that new stadium. Just like we used to run down up and down C Street and get to the game. Sure. We used to walk to the game in Trinidad. We don't need all the things going around. There's a community there. And they would like to keep that. And it works this time. So I don't understand why the need is for this. And then housing, you got the housing at McMillan Reservoir, but they're $1.5 million. Will it be housing in the 300 to 500 point range so people can afford them? Because right now I live in Trinidad, it's $1 million home. So when you talk about income, we were able to start out and buy in Trinidad and raise our families there. But now you cannot do that again on two income unless you are in the grade and the higher grade income. So when you talk about housing, it has to be affordable. Right. If it's not affordable, we don't need it. Right. You know, and so that's what I do.
Thanks for that feedback. I don't know if you all wanted to engage on that development around the stadium versus not developing around the stadium or not. But the point is well taken. Yeah. And what I'm hearing from you is a concern of impact on the communities around RFK. And I take that to heart for both Ward 5 communities, but also in Ward 7. I hate to be the guy that has to close this out. This guy here, okay, I'm gonna give you the last word.
Yeah. Well, good news, we didn't do that, but yes. Yeah. No, it's a great question. I will tell you that the collaboration and partnership with both the district as well as Maryland was very constructive. And there's no question that Maryland was very supportive of wanting us to explore and continue options in the state. I think what we felt was that given the heritage and the history of this team, the connection that we have to RFK, what it means, we believe. I have an owner that grew up on that walk down the street to RFK, and I can assure you, the vision that's in your mind is the same vision that's in yours. Right, seeing that walk down and what it meant to the city and what it meant to the community, I think is what gave the nod, if you will, to really trying to make it grateful to the mayor and the district being great partners and us working tough partners. Right? Remember that page where it shows our contribution versus the other stadium deals. But we thought it was a great outcome for everyone involved. But we're not going to leave Maryland empty-handed. We're committed. If we are successful in advancing with the district, we're going to work with the state to develop that plan with them, make sure we're responsible for the stadium that's there, and make sure great outcome as well. So, we were lucky to have two great states and municipalities that we're excited about.
Awesome. Thank you. Great question to end on. I want to thank you all in the room and virtually for joining tonight. This is not the end of the engagement. This is just one data point for me, team, as we are continuing deliberations. Again, I want to repeat next steps. We are expecting the mayor's certified budget on May 27th. Then we'll know more of the details, not just about this, but any number of proposals that we've talked about. And then the council will have deliberations moving forward. If you have questions that were not answered here tonight, we will endeavor to try to get as many answers as possible following tonight's event and include those responses in the newsletter. And last thing I would just say, there is a request for engagement. I am happy to come out to community meetings to work with the commissioners to engage and listen earnestly with neighbors as we scrutinize this deal. Thank you again. And I want to again thank Two Rivers for hosting us. I'm going to ask that we expeditiously exit so that they can go home for tomorrow's scrutiny. Thank you.